Test, and today we're going to be talking about Latin percussion, which is a pretty old sound pack from Ableton. I don't remember exactly how far it goes back, but it's been around for a little while. It's really a great sound pack though. First of all, it's got a lot of clips and patterns in it if you just kind of want some drag and drop elements to add some percussion. And we're going to talk about some rhythms, specifically tresillo and clave rhythms, so that you can understand a little bit how to maybe start programming some beats. But there are a ton of MIDI clips just built into the pack. The samples are great. A lot of the instruments have several articulations on each drum, so and each type of percussion, so you can get like, you can get some good contrast, some good flavor, some good character. It's not going to sound robotic or cheap. So great sound pack. We're going to go over it, look at how we can use it both for, of course, composition and then performance, which is usually just a matter of what kind of macros are available. What can we do in real time? So let's see. I'll start here on my push, and I will load up a device here. So I'm going to go, I've got a MIDI track set up. Go to add device. I'm going to go down to my packs. We'll find Latin percussion. Pretty straightforward, right? And so under here now, since I'm in a MIDI track, I've got a variety of drum hits, which are just going to be one-shot samples. Kits. A lot of kits. And they sound really good, Gosh, a lot of kits. We've got some different instruments here, some different drum instruments. So these are kind of separate from, I guess, the instrument kits are more like instruments, right? Whereas the rest of the components under drums are more like vibes. So like bossa nova, the instrument kit's gonna be like a bongo and a specific instrument, while everything else is like a vibe or cultural context. So Latin pop, Colombia. So you can kind of pull together something for a specific vibe that you're trying to shoot for, maybe by combining these, but being aware that they're sort of categorized a little differently. Then we can go to samples. Of course, there's just like a mountain of samples, as there often is in a sound pack like this. So let's switch over to software, because I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to find in this pack. And let me just bring this up here. Got that sound. Gotta get that out of there so we're not just listening to that bell ring a million times. Sorry, I'm having a problem with my mic here. All right, so yeah, let's switch over to the software, and I'm going to pull up Ableton Latin percussion. And right away, we're going to be able to see there's a lot of material on here. So it's about a gig in installation, but there's a ton of presets and live clips. So these live clips are going to be things that you can just kind of drag and drop. The presets are going to be a combination of racks, drum racks, instruments. It doesn't look like, let me just, before I promise this, let's take a look here at Latin percussion. So we've got clips and drums and samples. Yeah, so there aren't any audio effects here. So there aren't any audio racks or MIDI racks or anything. These are just straight up instruments. And when we load one up, they look like this. So this is based on the sampler device. And you've got all these different articulations. This is just like bells and triangles, but it's actually a drum rack of these, and each drum pad has a sampler or a combination of effects in it. But it's not really an effects rack that you could drag onto anything. It's an instrument rack with some effects in it. So no audio effects here. That makes a lot of sense. But anyway, let's go back to the view here. So acoustic percussion. So we're not getting synthesized stuff here. We are actually looking at, we'd want to produce something that actually sounded authentic. Latin percussion. Their tags are world music, percussion, world instruments. So this is a pack designed to create authentic analog acoustic percussion sounds, not anything synthesized. Let's listen to a couple of the demos. So a lot of range here. Shakers, bells, congas, bongos. Some shakers. A lot of different styles. Right, and actually in the demos here, they've got, can kind of give you a taste for some of the different styles, calypso and so on and so forth. See what jazz funk sounds like. So this might be even something you could layer in with other kits, other drums. Now, we're trying to get authentic drum sounds here, and it's definitely delivering on that. We know that it has a ton of great clips. And we'll talk in a few minutes about how you can program some authentic Latin grooves. But let's listen to some of these clips. So there's different vibes here: African, Cuban, Brazilian. There's going to be a variety of flavors in here that are going to be based on helping you quickly assemble some track with this very specific sort of musical, cultural vibe. There's really a lot in here. I mean, this is a pretty amazing collection. And my guess is also that you could take a whole bunch of these. You could take like all of these that have a similar label, and you could bring those over to it's not working, I guess. Bring these in one at a time. I'm curious to know if these sound good together. I'm going to add a couple of MIDI tracks here. So when I add a MIDI track, I'm just holding Shift Command T. Right. And then just go ahead and play all of these. So there's a nice combination that comes from just having loaded up a bunch of these clips that all, share the same labeling. So, if you brought in like all the funk 2s or all the funk 1s together and played them together, then that could be like a pretty good way to just assemble something quick and dirty and get started. But let's look at some tips for actually developing your own beat. So if I come back to push here, and let's see, what do I got? Got to make an adjustment on my mic here. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna come back to go ahead and add device. Go down to packs. 'Cause And I'm going to go for this Columbia ADG. All right. Now I do have some clips already installed in here, so I'm just going to go ahead, delete those, go back to my device, and I want to talk a little bit about how you can design some convincing rhythms, because Latin percussion, I'm not an expert on this at all, but you know, I know enough to fool my friends and my mom. And there are a couple of, well, there are two rhythmic patterns that I always fall back on because they're the ones I understand, and I know they're real common, and I know they're real authentic. And these two rhythms are clave, which is a pairing of 3 and a 2, and I'll talk about that. And then also what's called tresillo, which is basically the 3 of the clave. So I'm going to just grab this bongo here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to program this tresillo beat. And the way that's going to work is it's kind of a 3 feel, but it's actually it's not triplet based at all. It's actually duple based. So it's based on 2s, but it feels like 3, and I'll show you what that means. So if I were to grab this and I were to program this, and I'm just going to put the one, let's turn that to 8ths. All right, so this sounds probably pretty familiar to a lot of people. This is kind of like a Latin rhythm, a very fundamental, very basic rhythm. Now the thing is, it is based on, I'm just gonna bring the volume down here. It is based on 2s because we have 2, 4, 6, 8, right? So our total number of beats, we're still basically looking based like this, where you're actually like accenting the first of each pair. You're actually kind of creating a group of 3 followed by another group of 3 followed by a group of 2. So you have 3, 3, 2. And you're fitting that into a group of 8, and you get this kind of like lilted sort of thing. It's not exactly triplets. It's not a triple feel. So if we were to do this with triplets, for example, if I were to select 8th note triplets for my grid, then I would have something like this. And, well, it winds up sounding like, basically just winds up sounding like 4/4. We're just in 3. So you really want to be in a setup where you're looking at a duple based sequence, but you're breaking it up into 3, 3, and 2. So what's really cool is if we take this kind of rhythm and we juxtapose it with a straight up 4/4. This is like a very, this is going to sound familiar, but it also gives it a very distinct Latin flair. So I'm going to go back to my devices here, and I'm going to just load up a standard like 808 kit, right? Something that's just because I basically want a kick. I want a quick access to a kick. Now the thing is here, if I put 4 to the floor on my kick, you get this cool juxtaposition now of the 4/4 and then this tresillo rhythm. And if we looked on the software, we can see that I've got my 4 to the floor kick, just keeping that pulse. But then I've got this tresillo rhythm, which is, you know, slightly front loaded in terms of the pause. That last pause is half the length of the other pauses. So you get this combination, since the tresillo is actually a duple based rhythm, combining the two together creates this really convincing Latin vibe. So if we wanted to take this and add something that was, add a clave element to this, right? I'm going to come up here, see if I can get some kind of, all right, we got a clave here. Now there's an instrument clave and there's the rhythm clave. They're not necessarily tied in together. You could have a clave rhythm run on a bell or shaker or something. But I'm going to use this just so that it's a different vibe. Okay, so now what I want is I want that same tresillo rhythm, right? But then I'm going to have the second measure is going to be straight 4/4. So this is a clave. The clave is playing a clave. I'm going to mix them down a little bit. I'm going to put a little dotted eighth. Just experimenting with dotted rhythms. That delay is basically adding a dotted eighth on top of this, right, on the clave, which is adding an even more complicated rhythm. But yeah, if I were to just take out that delay, now we've got the clave representing the clave rhythm. We've got our kick keeping that 4 to the floor, right? And then we've got the tresillo rhythm on the bongo or the congas. So that's a very simple, it's very simplistic. But if we were to take that, you know, and we were to head into our software and just grab one of these and drag that, let's say, put it over here. So this is a combination of my very simplistic 4 to the floor combined with tresillo and clave, and then I'm adding on top one of the just kind of drag and drop MIDI clips here. Sounds great, sounds really nice. So I'm going to come back to my push and go to mixer. So very interesting rhythms, much more interesting variety now, just having put those 3 things or 4 things together. And you still got the essential 4/4 beat, so you can plug that into just about any sort of standard Western music because there's so much stuff based on 4/4. So that is an introduction to this sound pack. There's definitely a lot in here. If you just wanted to drag and drop some of these live clips into your project and just get started, then you'll wind up with something really authentic sounding. If you have a track that you've already produced, but you wanted to kind of add some more Latin context to it, just drag in some of these things, or revisit some of your core beats and see what you could maybe turn into tresillo or clave-based rhythms and reorient, you know, like rearrange and reorchestrate the way that your percussion and your drums are working. Experiment with different sounds. Use the bells, use the shakers. There's so many instruments in here. And then, of course, for performance, not only can you like do the mixing and the sequencing that I demonstrated here, but you can also use the macros for all of the you know, low cut, high cut, filtering, adding delay, you know, anything you can put on a macro is kind of like going to offer you performance. So if you're looking to perform something with this, then look at the macro controls that come on the instruments that you load up and that's where your performability is going to come from. Okay, so thanks a lot for watching. If you have any suggestions on either improving these live streams or things you want to have covered, maybe a sound pack you want me to focus on, please leave it in the comments. Please subscribe, really helps me out. And if you give me feedback, it really helps me figure out what people are interested in. I'm going through my sound packs kind of for my own benefit right now, and hopefully you're getting something out of it as well. But I'm really interested in hearing from you about anything that you want me to cover as well. So until next time, I'll see you in a few days. All right, bye for now.